Hello everyone and welcome to the Council of Elrond, where we discuss all things Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion, general Tolkien lore and also the Rings of Power, which is what we will be covering in today's episode. Myself and Johnny were granted special access to the world premiere of the Rings of Power in London, and boy, we got to get into it. So before we kick off today's episode though, I'd like to thank everyone that continues to sign up to our Patreon account, and a special thank you to Jack Knightley. Also, a quick reminder that we do have a new YouTube channel and we're posting lots of fun content over there, so check out the link in the podcast description. Thank you all so much.
You have not seen what I have seen.
So today we are joined by our lovely guest, Jaron from the podcast The HALFLING, who has been lucky enough to be invited to the premiere himself in New York. So we're all actually able to finally discuss the Rings of Power together and hopefully have this episode out by Friday. So welcome finally, Jaron, to the Council of Elrond.
Welcome.
Because it's been a long time coming. We've had so many invites and then cancellations, and it's been probably all our fault. But yeah, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience and let them know where they can find you?
Sure. No, it's great to be here, guys. It definitely has been a roller coaster, and it is not all your fault. I remember canceling on you in an airport at some point this summer, so I know some of it was on me.
Good.
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 90-10, more or less.
No. But no. So yeah, I host the HALFLING. That's the podcast stuff that I do for fun, and then I also write for Looper.com. I do most of they do a lot of Tolkien content right now because everyone's covering everything. But I've been doing deep dives for them for 4 years now. In fact, at a press event in July, I got to meet the showrunners, and they said that they were aware of my stuff. So that was really fun I've been setting the stage for years as this is what it could be, and it's slowly been turning into this is what it is.
Yeah.
So, wow.
Yeah,
so Looper.com, the HALFLING, Pak.Jaron is the Twitter handle. That's where you can find me.
Yeah, cool.
Well,
and
congratulations on all your success.
It's been great. It's been wild because 3 months ago, I was just this like writer in the corner of the internet writing fun, nerdy Tolkien stuff, and so it's been fun. I think for all of us in the community to see the spotlight shine on Tolkien for once, and not Marvel or Star Wars or actually get the Tolkien stuff out in front. Yeah,
that's so true. You're also doing a little bit with Fellowship of Fans now, right?
Yes. So I've been joined with them in I think it was May, June. And I write occasionally. I've been doing some of their shows. It's been really fun. We did I interviewed Robert Aramayo, and we did a breakdown of the interview. I did that with Harry over there at Fellowship.
Cool.
You guys saw him in London, right?
Yeah, we were. I was just going to say that we finally met Harry for the first time, the man behind the mask, and yeah, it's
great.
It's been great. Like just getting to meet all these people that we've just spoken to on Twitter and Instagram for the last 2 years, getting to see everyone at the event. It was special. How was your experience in New York?
Oh man, it was great. So I don't think it wasn't quite I think what you guys got in London as far as the size of it. That was just enormous. but no, it was at the Alice Tully Theater on Broadway, and I mean I left my hotel on Broadway and there's like a whole block wrap. It was all over Twitter, that big wrap up the billboard that was just all of it. And it was cool. It was a very cool experience. I met a ton of the stateside influencers. All the East Coast people were there, and they had a fun cocktail hour beforehand where we kind of all were. It was fun to the actors were in and out, but then the influencers were actually some of the more fun conversations, honestly, because we're all just meeting and connecting with who's who and all these fun oh, you're you, yeah, okay, I know your little icon on Twitter really well, but here's who you actually are. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, we had a similar experience, I suppose. But luckily enough, we got to meet all the influencers maybe the day before. We had nice. Like a cocktail party thing on a roof, and so that's where we got to do all our introductions, which is nice.
So I heard about that. Was that put on by Amazon, or was that something you guys arranged? The cocktail party.
Oh,
the cocktail was put on by Amazon. we had arranged to have a dinner together then with all the influencers ourselves, but there was a cocktail that was provided by Amazon as well.
Sweet. So who was that? Were the actors at that?
No, there was no actors at that. It was just people involved with with Amazon, it was just all the people that had been invited, the influencers, the content creators, and just general people that were Tolkien nerds like ourselves. So
that's so
it was
fun.
Fantastic to have that, like, those geeky conversations and have everybody understand what you're talking about.
It's once in a lifetime, I feel like, because we all connect remotely, but the opportunity to actually be in the same space and know we're in the same space is so rare.
Yeah, that's because we were the only ones representing Ireland, so I didn't know if we were going to get a chance like that again. So everyone that's in London or everyone that's in the UK could make a trip down a train down to London and meet up, but it's much more difficult for Johnny to come from Spain and me to come from Ireland. It's nice.
So one quick question. The other one is, I've seen the pictures and a little bit of videos, but what was that giant thing like? The structure they built in the middle of was it Leicester Square?
Yeah.
Can you explain what it was like to even like be up in front of that in person?
It was crazy. It was just, how can you describe it? There was
it's like mini Linden.
It was kind of like Linden. There was just so many different levels, and you were kind of going from place to place, and each area had sort of a little place that you could stand and have a view, and there were golden trees, and there was just places for people to do interviews, and but we were like the whole time just kind of being shooed around and being kind of told where to go and where to stand and how, like, when to get out of the way, and if it's like, okay, get out of the way, stand behind this place now, because
you 5 minutes here, now you 5 minutes there, and you had to keep moving and keep but it was great. Like, the whole place was so beautiful to look at, and I couldn't tell which trees were real and which ones were fake because it was in Leicester Square, which is a park, and there was like leaves all around me, and I was like, I think I asked you a few times, Johnny, I was like, is this tree real or is this tree fake? I don't know.
But
they've been doing, and they're moving those things all over the world, because they had them out at the San Diego stuff too, and they look undamaged and really, really nice. The actual, so I had heard somewhere that there was like 5 sections of that structure, and they were all different areas of Middle Earth. Is that true?
No, I think it was,
or was it all Linden themed? Okay.
I think it was,
because the pictures I saw were all they all looked like Linden.
Yeah. Like, I did feel like there was a bit of Mordor creeping in when the clouds rolled over. It was such a beautiful day, and we were all standing outside for like hours. And then suddenly the clouds came over. We were all like, oh no, here we go. It's going to start raining. But
is it Mordor, or is it Bilbo's birthday the night before, right?
Yeah.
And then it all cleared up and everything was fine, right?
Yeah, well, it was fine. It rained for like a second, and it was like 3 drops, and then we were like, nah, that's grand. It's all cleared up.
That's awesome.
But then the sun shone out the clearer.
Exactly. Right, Samwise. We're going to get into this. So, so today we're going to break down the first 2 episodes, one after the other. So you guys, the audience, if you haven't seen them, there will be spoilers, so this is your official warning. However, we will try to tackle just episode 1 first before giving the second spoiler warning for episode 2. So, episode 1, Shadow of the Past. Like I explained to you off air, Jaron, we're not going to talk about every single scene, but we're going to talk about maybe the different geography areas that you mentioned before. And I'm so sorry, everyone, if it sounds like I'm drunk or slurring my words. I'm so tired. We're both exhausted. Myself and Johnny have just gotten back from the event, flew in, and I've only had a couple of hours.
We haven't slept for a couple of days.
Just kind of prepared this episode in, I don't know, 2 hours, and here we go. But
you're good influencers. You got right back to the content creation.
Yeah, I know, that's exactly it. So, Jaron, the opening scene, Galadriel and her brother Finrod. It's an interesting way to start the show, but apart from trying to hold together your excitement, what was your initial reaction to the very first scene of the Rings of Power TV show?
Yeah, so this was an interesting one just because there is that you're coming off that super hyper excitement, this is really happening, and then suddenly you're like in Valinor.
Yeah.
And I think the thing I liked it. I liked it overall. I think they had to make some creative decisions to make that work, because there's this otherworldly element there that you could steer into that, but if you did that, it wouldn't be accessible, or even like people who don't know Tolkien would be really confused. And so I felt like they brought it really down to earth in a sense. while still keeping it lit and light, and it's kind of got that, that very lit feeling, very, very light oriented. But there's like,
so they brought it down to Earth, but not down to Middle Earth.
I was thinking down to the Blessed Realm. Yeah, that's the thing though. Is I was like, I can actually kind of get a feel for being an elf in that area, and that always to me was not something I'd really visualized. So I liked that. I liked the conversations. I liked the immediate tension of elves are not perfect. I know I talked about that before. I'd heard people talk about it. It's like, they got bullies. Yeah. They make mistakes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that right off the bat. Yeah.
That was cool seeing the kids throwing the rocks at, and you're kind of thinking elves should be like beautiful and majestic. But Johnny, you had one or two things to say about the scene, from what I remember. I think so, unless you have changed your tune.
Well, I don't know. Well, first of all, I think I enjoyed the scene as well. I liked seeing the little paper ship. I thought that was cool. It looked much fancier than any paper ship or a paper plane that I could ever make. But I wouldn't say it was my favorite scene by any means. And I don't know what it was. There was something about. I have a question maybe before I go any further. Maybe Jaron, you might be able to. You might know more about this than me. How do young elves age? Do
that's a good
they
question.
age like men, like humans, until they reach adulthood? And then, because for example, when Finrod was speaking to Galadriel, like 10-year-old Galadriel, I was thinking, is this 10-year-old or is this 100-year-old Galadriel? Because the kind of riddles that he was using and the way he was speaking in this kind of strange way, I was saying, it's very complicated for a 10-year-old to understand. Oh, you're reaching into.
I'm pulling books out.
Yeah, good.
I don't know if I can find this off the top of my head. I've got the Nature of Middle Earth book here, but there's a section in here on Elvis aging, and it's like mathematical. Like he's got it's several formulas, so there's not one answer. But I'll just say, so I don't waste too much time, I guess. I think it's 20 to 1, 10 to 1. There's like an initial age range when they're physically growing, and it's like, because I remember Elrond is supposed to be like 60 when the second age starts, and I think he should be at least looking like a teenager, if not older. And then once they hit like 200 years old, I think it's 10 to 1, because I think what it is and people can comment and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, I think it's around 200 years old that they look like a 20-year-old human, and then the maturation, or whatever the word is, slows way down, like 100 to 1 or something. So kids that age, it was an interesting. Yeah, I don't think it was a really accurate representation, because if they look that small, well, I don't know, because maybe that small, she's like 100 years old already, right?
That's what I was thinking, and I was saying, the way that Finrod was speaking to her was almost like she was, a highly intelligent being already. So that's the feeling that I got from it. I'm sorry for just throwing a really complicated question at you at the beginning.
Great.
I didn't actually
stuff.
plan to ask you that. So
I know that there's not a specific answer, because I know that there's several versions, but it is very close to, like, I think it's like 10 to 1. So if she's like 12, she could be like 120 in experience. But I think part of the point of that is that they mature slowly. So their brains are not, their experiences are going to compile much faster than their brains are processing it. Whereas humans, in 20 years, we've got all this experience and knowledge and stuff. And so I don't know if that really lines up. That'd be an interesting one to see, like Corey Olsen or somebody tackle. Somebody who really has a higher pedigree in that.
Well, you've given a really fantastic answer, so good job. You can now continue on the rest of the podcast. You passed the test.
No,
thank you.
That was a great answer, because that was one of the first things that Johnny and I discussed at, was it 3:30 in the morning, or 2:30 in the morning in my bedroom in the hotel. We were like, so how the hell do elves age? Is it like Grogu or Baby Yoda from Star Wars, or I don't know.
Yes.
But
so we saw the 2 episodes, then we came out, had lots of wine, and just basically tried to have these really, really in-depth conversations, and we were like, having these, it was way too complicated. It was way too
I
complicated
know.
for that time of the night.
That's when you get philosophical, not mathematical.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How old was she? What does your heart tell you?
Yes, exactly.
That's how old she was. Okay.
So many years of the trees, and that's all we need to know. That's
Exactly. All right, so we'll move on to the actual prologue. So the next scene, I think the next scene, I can't really remember. We only got to see it once, remember. The prologue, which basically summed up the Silmarillion in about 5 minutes. And I think everyone sensed this was coming, that there was going to be a big kind of previously on the Silmarillion and voiced by Galadriel as well. So, Johnny, actually, what were your thoughts on this little prologue?
Yeah, I mean, there was some amazing visuals in there. We'll have to give it those props as well. There was, obviously, when I saw a dragon take down a great eagle, it was like, oh, I'm strapping myself in. Here we go. Again, I know that they had probably an impossible task, and I don't know if it's a rights issue or maybe they just couldn't develop any of that any further. But it was, like you said, very quickly explained, and probably much too quickly, because I will say this. I had a slight disappointment of the scenes and the shots that we'd seen in the trailers that we had speculated about for so much, especially that shot from underwater looking up at the destroyed. But the destruction, we don't even know what it was that was destroyed exactly. We all had different theories, and then suddenly we're like, oh, we're going to find out. But I think we're not going to find out anymore. I think it's just here's just lots of destruction and war, and that's all you need to know. So that was one slight disappointment. But again, visually, it was completely stunning. I thought they did a relatively good job. Obviously, they couldn't remain true to everything, but I don't know. I want to hear what Jaron you have to say about this.
Yeah, so I have had the because I went to the New York City premiere last week, and then because I write for Looper, I had screeners since then. So I was telling you guys off air that they had a watermark on it, so it was not the same experience. It was not an IMAX, but I have been able to kind of look at that sequence again, and it is what I expected as far as they don't have access to the Silmarillion. So like Ungoliant's not there. Yeah, that makes sense. She's not mentioned. She is mentioned in the Return of the King or Two Towers or whatever. Yeah, but it's like it's not that part that they're talking about.
Sure.
And so they sped it up. I think they combined a couple battles because they show Galadriel pretty much Battle of Unnumbered Tears style with it's helmets, not bodies. But that seems like they took that, and then they took obviously like I don't know if it's on Calagon the Black or not, but the dragon and the eagles and different events, and they're kind of mashing them together and just showing you this big montage. And I liked it. It definitely was stunning. It did put visual elements in my head that I know I'll never be able to get away from again. And I liked when I had my own imagination for some of those. And I don't know if it accomplished enough for me to love that. Again, stunning. I loved it as part of the experience. But I don't know what it accomplished really, because they could have kind of summarized that in a much shorter amount of time. And they made a couple weird decisions, like having Finrod draw swords with Feanor's sons, and it's like,
do you think that's what? Because that's another thing that we all kind of speculated. Oh, this is the oath of the sons of Feanor. And then as soon as I saw Finrod there, I was like, oh, this is just something completely different. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with it. So maybe it is. It's like the oath +1 or something.
+1. Well, yeah. I think that's fair. I think it's an artistic representation. It's not literal. So you're right. They have that easy cop out, right? Like, well, it's not the oath. But I think it kind of summarized the oath plus the Galadriel, Finrod, the extra people that came kind of as part of that. So, So it was great, but I think it was definitely an interesting way to present 2/3 of the information.
Yeah, and I mean, we know that lots of things were kind of put together and glossed over, and the reason for why they left Valinor wasn't exactly correct, and all of these types of things. And also, but like for me, I really wanted to see more of Finrod's death as well. They really just glossed over that.
They do show the scratches, so I mean, they indicate it, but then they don't show it.
Yeah, could be scratches from any beast of any type.
Yep.
I think that's one thing. If they didn't show any of those shots in the trailers, such as the sinking or the destruction or whatever that was supposed to be, and like Finrod in the battle, and we saw lots of little clips, and they played all the same ones again that were just maybe slightly longer in the actual show. If we never got those clips in the trailers, then we probably would have been loving what we saw on the show. We would have been like, oh, what a surprise. We're getting to actually see some possible events from the Silmarillion. But I think it's just that we were all expecting so much more because the trailer gave us off that vibe. But yeah.
And what about like Sauron's symbol that he's just going around like branding flesh and stone with
I was writing about that yesterday because I was like, everybody, you're all looking at this like sigil that they've put in his skin, and that's not Sauron-ish. I mean, it's not. I guess he could have done that, but like the scratches are what I care about because I'm like, that's like werewolf scratches if that's accurate. Yeah. Everyone's like, yeah, he got kind of hurt, but look at this mark in his flesh, and it's like, and they're putting that everywhere. Like, and they were trying to other people were trying to write about that at Looper the other day, and I'm trying to come up with like what it could be, and I'm like, as a Tolkien fan, I don't know where it's got to be like an Eye of Sauron precursor, or it's pointing to Mordor. Right?
I think a map of Mordor, that one looks.
I've seen that online. All right,
yeah. I think so. Like you can even see Orodruin in that little symbol. So, and I think that's the one that makes sense. I think Galadriel. We speculated about it for a while that maybe this is Sauron's calling card and getting people to go to Mordor, or build the armies in Mordor, and I think Galadriel even said something like that in this episode. Maybe
something like that.
Something
it
like
definitely has. Yeah, the Mordor feel is very, very there. Yeah, but is it taking the place? Is it supposed to feel like an Eye of Sauron thing?
Probably,
because we never even got. Yeah, in PJ's movies, we never got that, right? Like he just made him an actual eyeball and stuck him up there, and that was it. Whereas it's supposed to be like his mark. It's on all their stuff, and it's on everything.
Right.
You don't say his name. Yeah, exactly. So
that's kind of cool. I like the way it looks. I like I think it's kind of menacing. It's
quite evil.
I don't know. Yeah, I like it a lot. Before we actually move on, and I don't want to drag this on too much, but I thought it'd be good to mention we heard a really funny anecdote. Because we got to meet the actor who plays Finrod, and we spoke to him, and he was speaking about like this is like a few years ago when he had got the part and he was reading the script, and it said in the script that he was going to be lying on a slab, shirtless, and so he said he got into like the most incredible shape of his life, and he trained and he didn't eat carbs for like a year. And he just got into like absolute perfect shape. And then just before they were about to shoot that scene, COVID happened and everything got shut down. And they didn't know when they were going to shoot that scene. So they just said, just stay in the same shape. And so he had to stay in the same shape that he was in for 2 years, waiting to shoot the scene. And so another 2 years of no carbs, going to the gym every single day. And he said eventually they came and they shot the scene. And he said he was lying on the slab and like, tensing, trying to like show off his body. And they shot the scene. And then the director walked over and just grabbed this white sheet and like placed it over his body up to his neck and just said, yeah, that looks better. Let's go again. And so he said,
and we're not looking at his muscles, we're looking at his wounds, right?
Yeah.
So it's man.
So yeah, I am. I mean, that must be sickening.
Yeah,
for
the
you
poor
to
guy
go through that hell. But he was really lovely. He was really lovely, and it was a very funny little anecdote. So
he was a trooper.
Well. That's awesome. That's an awesome story.
So we'll move on. The next thing that we get into is actually seeing Galadriel at the Forodwaith with some chilling scenes and action. It was kind of the main bit of action to kick off the series. I know we had the prologue, but like we actually got to see some troll action here. So did you enjoy these scenes, Jaron? What did you make of Galadriel up north?
Yeah. So I promise you I'll get more positive about this soon, but I actually did not love that introduction to her. I wouldn't have minded if we built to it, but it felt like it was coming on a little bit strong with the like. I'll say up front here that the Galadriel consumed with vengeance thing is one of my biggest issues so far with the show, and I'm hoping it plays out a little differently with it rounds out, because I just was reading in Unfinished Tales the other day, like that's a real part. I get that that's a part of her, what drives her, but there's also the adventure, there's the wanting to rule things, so I hope they round that out, because they really came on heavy with it in the beginning. But then getting to see, I'm assuming it's Autumno, right, the Morgoth's original fortress,
yeah,
and the shots in there were great. The fight with the troll was cool. I mean, all of it was a fun, splashy. I think mainstream audiences are going to have fun with the first 10, 15 minutes of this thing. How about you, Johnny?
Quite similar. I would say. Visually, it really there was. I said this to someone as well. Like while I was still in my seat, as soon as I finished, I said there were quite a few parts there that made me think, this reminds me of Lord of the Rings. Because just in our general lives, I'm assuming every time you watch a different movie, you can kind of go, oh, that, you know what, that reminds me of Lord of the Rings.
Me and Johnny do it all the time to each other. Hey, Johnny, look at that tree. What does that remind you of? Lord of the Rings.
So I got that feeling quite a few times during these two first episodes. So and again, one of them was during that troll scene, just the lighting, the way it was shot, it really reminded me of like the Helm's Deep kind of lighting and the cave troll in the first movie as well. So just that kind of, it's nighttime, it's dark, but there's a blue hue on top of it. And it makes you feel, okay, it's dark, but I'm not missing out any action, unlike some other dark action sequence that maybe we've all seen in a different big series.
Game of Thrones.
So, so there was that. I loved that. I will say that the way that it showed Galadriel immediately, basically already kind of having all of her team against her, all of her all of her soldiers, they're already like ready to mutiny when we first start. I think it would have been cool to add in just a tiny sequence of them showing their loyalty initially and then going through hardships and slowly getting more and more disloyal and saying, okay, now it's gone too far. But immediately she's there, you know, leading them, and they're all just like, we hate this. This is terrible. We want to go home.
Yes. So, also, the timeline gets funky because I've had trying to explain that, and you're like, there's first age, and then it's 1,000 years later, I think, and she's been hunting him for a long time, I think, and her soldiers are tired of it. Like it's very abrupt. It just happens all of a sudden.
Yeah. But that's something that happened more times, and I'm sure it will happen more and more as the series goes on. You kind of go, whoa, that was a big jump there. So I think we're probably going to have to get used to that. But also,
are you talking about the time jump or Galadriel's big jump on the sword? Or...
That was a big jump.
That was a super big jump.
Galadriel and her action sequence, I thought I was all for it. I loved it. I thought she was really good. I was disappointed with the other elves. They sucked.
They did suck.
I mean,
but
I
it was
like,
sneaky
why aren't
troll.
all of them? But they all should have been to a similar level as well.
Yes.
I think.
I would have liked to see her leading them to beat it rather than just like, I'll do this and you can watch.
Yeah.
That was a little bit. It would have been, because she can again lead the way, be the best fighter, all that stuff. But yeah, I do agree. It was a little bit odd. Like, aren't there like 6 or 7 other guys watching there? They could be shooting arrows or something.
These are like Noldorian like warriors. I'm like, they could one-on-one. Each of them should have been able to take out this troll. That's what I would have felt. So, but again, they're just saying like, look at how badass she is, and she was fantastic in that. So I did enjoy that. Also, did that elf die? That the troll picked up and just like slammed against
I don't think
the
so.
rock?
I wondered that. And they got a bunch of them got slammed with a bunch of ice, like a giant ice boulder too.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like that had any effect.
Yeah, it wasn't. But I was like, oh, he's definitely a goner. And then I was like, oh, I think he's fine, actually.
I was waiting for that troll to just bite his head off.
I thought he was going to do like a rip him in half kind of a thing. Yeah,
no, I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get an old head bite. But
more violence.
Yeah. And it's interesting what Jaron said there about like mainstream audiences are probably going to love the first 10 minutes. I would have said that about the first 2 episodes. I just thought like all of it. I'm not spoiling the second episode, but I just think like it's perfect for mainstream audiences. And I think we're starting to see some of the reviews slowly creep in, and they seem pretty positive so far, which is good. But we'll have to move on because we're cutting short in time. So introduction to the Harfoots. Like him or hate him, Jaron, what do you think? First of all, what do you think of their accents before you tell us what you think of them?
I liked it because so it's supposed to be an Irish lilt, right?
Oh yeah, of course it is.
They said. So as the Irish guys, I gotta reflect that question back. Do you approve of it as a Irish inspired but Middle Earth accent?
Johnny?
Will I take this? I'll say there was one accent that I just it really irritated and bothered me.
We both had the exact same thoughts.
Of Nori's mother. I can't remember the character's name, but it was very it didn't sit right. I thought I liked Nori's accent. I loved her father's accent.
Yeah.
I believe he is actually Irish.
He's Irish, yeah.
So so the other so the accent kind of, it was way too forced, I thought, and it sounded a bit weird. But
Sure.
I'm not gonna say any more about the accents. It's that was my only one little concern.
She's the one that says men in their fields of grain.
Yes.
And
yeah, exactly.
Very forced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly,
So I agree with that. I think as far as the accents in general, though, I thought it was perfect for it gave it that kind of Hobbit, but not just the same thing we've seen before.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
It felt good. So I did like that. And as far as the Harfoots in general, I will say that I was the least excited for that, and but going in and coming out, I loved it. I thought I loved it. I'm kind of like, I don't care how it lines up. I think they're safe though, because it says they're around in the Elder Days, which is before this. And as long as they avoid getting too synced up with exact events in the Third Age, they can wander around all they want to. And I loved the reference to the piping of birds, where they blow the whistle, and that's what Theoden says, right? Where it's like they can change their voice to resemble the piping of birds, and he is a man reflecting the legend of those guys up on the hill that are like, oh, the Harfoots will get you, you know, like. So that was really clever, kind of integrating.
It was, yeah. And I think that's been. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think that's been the general. Pretty much everybody I asked had almost exactly that same feeling coming out, saying this was one of my biggest worries and my biggest concerns, and it's completely flipped around, and that was one of the elements that I really enjoyed of the show.
Yeah,
and I think they handled it really well. The accents kind of took me out of it at some points, but in general, getting to see, you know, where they live and how they stay out of the eye of the big folk and things like that. It was very good. Now, I do think that they were kind of pushing hard to try and make it feel like the opening of the Fellowship of the Ring, maybe just the extended edition one, where Bilbo has that long sequence where we see the comings and goings of normal life for the hobbits. And they did a good job, but I definitely didn't really get the exact same feeling as that. But it's not the end of the world, and it was nice to see Harfoots in their natural habitat and
habitat.
Habitat.
Or habitat.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
Like if anyone wants to know my opinion as well, I really enjoyed the Harfoots. And actually, Johnny, you just talking about how the first scene is similar to the Fellowship of the Ring. I didn't think about that until you just mentioned it, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to this today, if this episode comes out on Friday, of rewatching that episode, because I really want to see all the Harfoots and their comings and goings and whatever they're doing and getting up to all sorts. And in general, love the Harfoots. So we'll move on to some more exciting things, such as Lyndon, Elrond, Gil-galad. Was it just me, or did we all love these scenes? Jaron, what did you make? I think the very first time we see anything is Elrond writing in some forest. Was that the first bit?
Yep.
Yeah.
That tree out in the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was fun. It was a good way to set the stage, kind of shift gears. And Robert Aramayo was just he's clearly embraced the role. It was really fun to see him. You could tell he was immersed in the character. So that was really fun. And then portraying Lyndon is a challenge, I'll tell you what, because there's just not a lot in there about it. It's really important, but Tolkien did not give us a lot of details. So the way they've set it up, we had a lot of it in the trailers and the promotional footage. So I think I wasn't surprised by it, but it held up. I mean, it was beautiful. Benjamin Walker, when I interviewed him in June, he was pointing out that the first time he went on set, there was 500,000 hand-painted gold leaves.
I heard that.
On the set.
It's insane.
And it's and then he said there's an army of technicians and people everywhere, and they're all looking at him, right? Because it's there's not a lot of them on the screen. And I'm assuming it's from those scenes, because there's a lot of leaves all over the ground. And so it was just cool to see it in action. And
wow.
There's not a ton. Honestly, there wasn't a ton. There's a lot of dialogue in those scenes, but as far as the general feel, I think it was good. I liked it. I don't know how much and when to dive into this, but I don't know how much I love sending people to Valinor, setting the precedent for people who don't know Tolkien, that sending someone to Valinor is like a reward or something you earn, like a retirement plan. Because it always feels like the elves choose to go, and if they don't want to go, they don't, and if they do, they choose to. And he kind of sends them as this like a reward for good soldiers. And so that part, I got to kind of digest that and see how it goes as they get further into the show. But yeah, overall, I loved the Lindon stuff.
Yeah. Johnny, what about you?
Yeah, just when the elves were on the screen most of the time, I was just I was very happy to see everything. I loved most things. I really enjoyed the introduction to seeing Robert playing Elrond and writing the speech. Yeah. And then later on seeing Gil-galad delivering it, and he's there like his lips moving, and I thought that was really cool. And then I was slightly worried for a moment that they were going to take away from Gil-galad, like
make him seem stupid, like
make him seem almost stupid, yeah. But then we definitely not. Like he's strong in his own way. He's powerful. He's regal. He's everything you would expect from Gil-galad. I think Benjamin Walker did a fantastic job with Gil-galad as well. I really enjoyed seeing him. He seems kind of a bit ruthless as well, so I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more.
Yeah, he's been saying that in a bunch of the interviews, that he's kind of got that parenting style going on of letting the kids mess up and then being there to help them fix. And it kind of came across right away where he clearly knows more than everyone else.
Yeah,
and he's got his finger on the pulse. He's like, yeah, I know there's evil, but I'm not going to say it. Yeah, we got to get Galadriel out of here because she's saying too much. Like. You can tell he's a step ahead of everybody.
Yeah, so. Yeah, that's what I liked, because that was another thing that me and Johnny discussed after watching it. That it did seem like when Elrond was moving his lips, it kind of made Gil-galad seem a little dumb. But even in that scene, he kind of turns, and the way the camera is shooting him, it kind of looks like he's almost looking at Elrond to be like, "I know you know what I know, but I know that you know that I know you know." That kind of way. It's like he's 3 steps ahead of Elrond's 2 steps. Yes. And I really enjoyed.
Elrond does the 2-step,
and I don't know.
I appreciate your speech. Yeah,
I don't know if I should say it, but I whispered to Johnny as well at the premiere. I was like, he looks exactly like Kevin Spacey to me, and maybe that's why he seems so ruthless. He's like a long-haired Kevin Spacey.
He looks very different in his costume.
Yeah, more than most of them. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think he looks way better with the long hair. I don't know, should I say that, but. Now, Benjamin Walker he looked absolutely stunning at the premiere.
He was very dapper.
He was a pure James Bond. Too. Yeah.
He's a tall elf. Tell you what, like you walk up, when he walks by you or up to you, it's like, oh my goodness, you got to look up to him, which is cool for a king of the elves. I mean, you don't have to worry about building a set for that to work, or like sizing issues. So
yeah, that was a great call to get someone of that stature.
Yeah.
And in general, guys, as well, like Galadriel has their little tiff with Gil-galad and Elrond, and a lot of people were worried about this element of the show, the dialogue. But what were your guys' impressions? Johnny, I'll start with you this time. Especially in those Lindon scenes.
Yeah, I loved it. I was a bit worried after seeing some parts of the trailers and the little snippets that we got. I had a few doubts and a few worries there, especially the way that Elrond seemed to be a little bit disrespectful in the way he was speaking to Galadriel.
Yeah.
Who is his mother-in-law. I don't know if she's supposed to be, or even if that's maybe in the series, I mean. So I think it was much better, and we saw that Elrond clearly has a lot of respect and a lot of love for Galadriel, and that came across really, really well. And I'm liking Elrond and as like politician Elrond. I think he's class, and I'm really enjoying it. And as you said, like he's a couple of steps ahead of everyone, but then Gil-galad knows when to reel him in, and I'm really excited to see their kind of relationship grow.
I think people when they heard politician Elrond, they started thinking of Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, and they were like, oh no, he's going to be like wheeling and dealing in the background. Whereas he's just writing people's speeches, and I'm loving that type of Elrond.
Yeah,
but yeah,
he was introduced as Herald Elrond, wasn't he?
Yes, and that is in the Silmarillion. He's the Herald of Gil-galad.
So that was I liked that as well. That little mention. They were like Herald Elrond. And I was like, oh, cool.
Yep, and that's early. I like to. You could tell that he looks like he's tutoring under Gil-galad, where he's got kind of a blossoming ability to be a politician, but he's not. It's a little
not
raw
quite there.
still.
Yeah.
And so
Kilgallen's like, okay, go get my coffee.
Exactly. And I like that with the Galadriel scenes, because I think once it played out and it wasn't the little clips we've had so far, you could tell that he wasn't speaking at like, I've seen more than you. He does have his little back and forth, and that's debatable about who's seen worse stuff. But he's pulling rank on her as the herald, right? Like, you've got to stop. I'm telling you as a friend, stop, or you're gonna get in trouble. Right? You're like, not from me. And so that was very legitimate. And he isn't inexperienced. I mean, if this is really whatever they said about 1,000 years into the, he's got experience.
Sure.
And so I think he was well within his rights to do. He's also not her son-in-law until in canon, it's like after this ends, he would become right after he. No. He meets
I'm all mixed up.
Celebrian. Yeah, I can't remember, but it's a ways in the future. So the friend thing works. It was a little chummy. I was a little surprised, but it does work. So,
but it was really good. That was another kind of Lord of the Ringsy vibe I got. Just how, I don't know, Elrond spoke so slowly, and when he was talking to Galadriel, he's like, "Galadriel, my friend," and it just felt so fantasy and just so different to any other TV show that you would watch. Like, you wouldn't get this on Game of Thrones, certainly not. It just seemed more fantastical, and I loved it.
They really went hard on. They went hard on that in particular. The different ways, like the inflections of speech and the speed of speech for the different groups, like the men or the elves, and it's a hugely important thing for the elves. I think that they are so timeless, and we got that a lot, I think, as well in the Fellowship of the Ring with Galadriel in that whole Lothlorien sequence as well, which does seem to last about 4 years, that scene when you're watching it, but they just speak so slowly, but it's just so, like you said, it's so elegant, and it was really good. Also, then to bring in the next character of Celebrimbor, I think we see him right then as well. Again, that was, and just the name drop of like Feanor and stuff. I'm just like, ooh, so excited, and showing. I think they did a good job of like letting the people that don't know too much about the lore, like the importance of this person, where just his hammer alone is like such a important artifact, and I enjoyed that. I like lots of just the little name drops as well. Every time they said like Sauron or Morgoth or whatever.
Morgoth.
Oh, here we go.
I love that. I think that's borderline episode 2 territory there. But,
it was.
That's okay.
Celebrimbor, the introduction is there.
Celebrimbor, I think it's like near enough the end of the episode. They're like, and here's Celebrimbor, and he just kind of looks at the camera and smiles.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
His portrayal is going to be so interesting to see, because he definitely is not what people expect. But I think Charles Edwards, I think he's going to win a lot of people over.
That's exactly what I made, like very few notes, as people can probably tell. But one, as in preparation for this podcast. But one thing that I wrote down was that just the initial kind of worry about how he looks and all those types of things. I think he's instantly going to win people over with his charm and his charisma. I think out of all of the cast that we met, I was almost kind of like speechless when I saw him. I was like, oh, this man is so beautiful. Like he's so like, I don't know, in real life he looks a lot younger in real life for some reason as well.
He also looks like like a stage actor. I mean, I think he's done a lot of Shakespeare and stuff. He comes across like, he's got that kind of Patrick Stewart feel, where it's like this guy is always regal. Like he just that's how he carries himself.
Just suave as well. He had a kind of a James Bond feeling about him as well.
A dicky bow, black suit. And Johnny as well was right beside me, and he just went to Charles when we were at the premiere. He was like, "Sorry, Charles, I just really want to shake your hand."
I was like, I was nervous talking to him.
You just wanted to touch him.
Really want to shake your hand. Like, can I please, like, can I bother you for a handshake? I don't want an autograph. Right? Just shake my hand.
Yes, and, I'm terrible with this stuff. I've always been like the guy who forgets to get the autograph, forgets to get the picture. I'm like, I just talk to them, and now nobody will believe me.
That's better. That's far better.
It is.
Yeah,
it's
I think so. But in general, I think this show is going to produce lots of original quotes as well, which should be good, like memorable quotes, because I got that vibe from this episode. But moving on, I want to talk about which was one of my favorite things, Valinor, and I'm talking about the whole scene of the boats going to Valinor and sailing west. What were your guys' thoughts on that? Jaron, what did you think of how they showed Valinor, I suppose?
So you mean the whole sequence of her returning?
Yeah.
And then, okay. And all of that happens within that episode, right? I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the episode ends with her
jumping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to get too far. We're getting to the end, right, between the two.
It's okay. We're going to be relaxed here. I think most people that listen to our podcast will probably watch the 2 episodes. But both, yeah. I'm just trying to be a little bit more professional today than we usually are, because
you're not doing a good job.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm like, I've no notes. I've had 2 hours sleep in 3 days. But, Valinor. Jaron, what do you think?
So Valinor. Lots of mixed feelings. It looked beautiful. I immediately thought of the Grey Rain Curtain quote from Frodo when he's in the house of Tom Bombadil, of the dream, and then obviously at the end of Return of the King, it says it turns to silver glass and rolls back like the Grey Rain Curtain turns to silver glass and rolls back. That was like actually happening on the screen, and the clouds are disappearing. The light I was confused about, because there is a sense of light, but the trees are not there. And so I'm a little confused about what that was supposed to be. And I wasn't sure about the entire like, it almost looked like they were like physically being absorbed into the light, which was a little, I think for us who have read this and enjoy this stuff, I get what it's a very artistic moment. But for people who don't know it, I think it looked a little odd. I've talked to a couple people who didn't know it, haven't read anything detailed about that. And they're like, what was happening? Were they like being euthanized? I don't know what's going on. And
guns live on a farm.
Yes, exactly. So that part, and then jumping from the ship I am torn right down the middle, where the logistical part of me wants to be like, that's nuts, and she knows it, and why would she do that? But then I've heard people who are like genuinely moved by the fact that she commits to this, like, basically suicide, as far as, I know I'm not going to make it, I'm going to do it anyways, this is so important, and then it pans out okay. And that kind of appeals to the whole Iluvatar's in charge of everything and that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of on the fence about the jumping off the boat, but it was well done. It was very moving, and definitely it was very interesting I liked the elves singing. I know some people didn't love it. I thought it was a very elvish thing to do. Start singing when you get in there. Oh. So, yeah. It was very moving.
It was like they were going home, and there was a massive speaker system coming out of Valinor, and they're like, "Oh, this is my favorite song," and they're all just singing along to their favorite tune. You know,
that was great. That's perfect. But it was, because it felt like it was started without them, and then they all joined in, right?
Yeah,
that's exactly. I mean,
it was the soundtrack. The name of that soundtrack song is called Valinor, I believe.
Just called Valinor, yeah.
Yeah, and they all just started singing along to it.
Yeah, I thought that's what was actually happening. That the sound was coming out, and they were like, "We know this song. This is our."
Well, that's what Elrond says.
The song of our homecoming.
Yeah, Elrond says that earlier in the episode. I believe he said something like. They say when you're called, or they say when you're going to Valinor, you know the song in your heart, or something like that.
Yes, and he mentions the light too, so they do tie it together. So yeah,
yeah,
I think it worked.
Yeah. I think this is probably maybe my favorite part of the entire episode. I loved it. It was always going to be almost an impossible task to pull this off visually when. It's, we're not supposed to even be able to kind of comprehend what it is. I didn't know what was going to happen if the boat was going to start like rising out of the water and start flying away, like, I don't know, with like some pixie dust or something.
Like Thor, Love and Thunder or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the combination of
crashes into a mountain.
For me, the combination of the combination of the visual and the music together, and just the dynamics that were involved, that was definitely one of the parts where I had the hair standing on end. So for me, I was blown away. It definitely exceeded my expectations for what they were going to do. And I was also glad to see that how, like, we all had questions like, what happens? Obviously, Galadriel, we see her on a boat, then we see her on a shipwreck and in water. And I didn't want it to be that like sea monster, that worm, just destroyed a boat full of elves that were on their way to Valinor. That wouldn't make sense. Like, surely they would have some sort of protection of the Valar there. So I'm glad that the way she ended up in the water is that she just took the decision and she jumped. So
that was
I was happy again.
Me,
That was another thing that for me, I was saying, oh, I'm glad that she's jumped. But then immediately afterwards, I was like, that was a terrible decision. Why did she? Like you were saying, yeah.
And the way that Elrond says she's passed beyond my sight, and then shortly after she jumps off, it almost implies that they go only a little, like a few miles out to sea, and then she jumps off of the boat. Which, in theory, maybe the straight path is, maybe they're indicating that, hey, but like they're not at Valinor yet, they're going on whatever that straight path is that's never really. So maybe that is like the launch point, and so they're not too far away. But none of that's made clear. But it's supposed to be really far if they're like at Valinor. I mean, she realistically has to know she's killing herself to jump off and start swimming from way off in the middle of nowhere.
Do we have any information on how good swimmers elves are?
Sure, if there's like snow, she can just walk on it almost, right?
Whip out that Nature of Middle-earth book one more time.
Yeah, get it out there.
How
Chapter,
water.
Best swimmers.
How long can they hold their breath?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed the ambiguity of not knowing. Like, we're asking all these questions, and you were saying that people that don't know of Valinor, or they don't have any experience of Tolkien before watching these, like mainstream audience, they'd be like, what's going on there? But we're also asking that. We're like, what's going on there? But like, no one really knows like what's going on when you're passing over to Valinor. So I liked that.
When you read the books, do you really know? Like, I think that's pretty accurate that we're all still confused about it, because he doesn't go into a lot of detail about it. So
that's what I mean. And it's supposed to, like, I think it'd be weird to see it converted onto the screen. Whatever, like maybe Patrick McKay or, one of the showrunners, maybe he's got an exact thought. He's like, yeah, the ship actually starts to fly at one point, and then it reaches the shores, which are like way higher up. And I don't like anyone's vision putting it on, put onto it. I think our own interpretation is what we're going to get out of it. So
I was half expecting the clouds to kind of just part like a door or something, and
kind of like in Monty Python whenever God is speaking.
That's the exact image that I had in my head. And I was like, it would be amazing as well if it was just this crappy like 1970s.
The Holy Grail.
Paul says there's like voice coming out there. The one thing I'm also glad we didn't see at the beginning was Arundel in a ship fighting a dragon, because as soon as that gets put into a visual image, it's going to ruin it for everybody. Like, that is such an unrealistic. That's so epic and out of scope of it's only imagination can do that.
Yeah.
Like, you tell me that he's in a boat and he's fighting a dragon, and I'm like, I see that all day long. But as soon as you put it on something, I'm going to laugh at it. And so I'm glad that they didn't go too far with some of these visuals, and that they didn't like have them getting to Valinor. Even though they showed Valinor, they didn't have them re-arriving there. It's like, no, they're going back, and we don't really know what that looks like, and that's fine.
So we'll move on. I've got 2 more points on this episode. So I suppose we have to mention Arondir, Bronwyn, and Theo not playing a huge role in the first episode, but certainly setting the tone for things to come. But yeah, in general, what did you make of the Southland scenes, Johnny?
They
were there.
They were part of the episode.
There were certainly Southland.
No, they were quite nice. It was nice to see these like new characters being introduced, and I thought it was quite natural the way they had that kind of scene in the bar where the young guy was kind of drunk and he was like shouting at Arondir, and you're kind of like, oh, there's tension that's built up over like centuries or whatever, and it maybe, because of what their grandfathers did, they've judged these people, and they're like, oh, it's in their blood. And so you can kind of immediately, and I didn't think, when I saw it, oh, that's so forced, and like they, sometimes you can watch a scene in something and the bit of dialogue is just way too, we need to get this information out there. You guys just
need to get from plot point A to plot point B.
Yeah, I didn't think, it didn't feel like that to me. I thought it was quite well done, so I was impressed by that. I like that. I'm trying to just remember. I can't really remember. It was definitely like the kind of the slower parts where I was like, okay, let's get back to the elves.
Yeah.
Hold on. But I mean, they're newer characters, and we obviously don't care that much for the newer characters. We're all here for the scenes with Galadriel and Elrond and Gil-galad and people like that. So it's natural that we're going to want to see those people more, especially in episode 1 when we're just so flippin' excited.
You want to find the connecting points and relate and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is nothing to do with even the Southlander part, but when you said the Southlanders, I just thought of the way that it shows and the visual things that they were doing with the map the whole way through the episode was a really cool thing as well, where they'd just go from place to place on the map and they showed the title on the map. And then that like title would kind of like, it would just kind of zoom into it. Actually happened really well one time on the Sundering Seas, where it zoomed in on the map and you could see the visual of the sea, and then those waves just came to life, and it was like, it was really,
you
really
and I
well
shared a look
I think
when that scene played out, and we held hands.
we were like, we also joined
the Valinor music started. And
we joined the elves in song. Dave and I have learned off all the songs from Bear McCreary's list. So
I've had it on repeat all week.
Oh, it's so good.
It's unbelievable.
But yeah, no. Apart from that, the Southlanders, I don't have too much to complain about. They were a little bit slow, and they weren't my favorite scenes. But I didn't hate them for sure, and I enjoyed several aspects of them. The sick cow, I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah,
that was really cool.
Really kind of gross as well. I was like, why did you?
I'm just going to milk this cow.
Put the hand underneath. Why couldn't you just squirt it into the ground? And like, as soon as it came out the first time, I would have been like, ugh. But he proceeded to let it squirt all over his hand. He's
all over.
Yeah.
Did he sniff it, or I can't remember what he did?
I'm pretty sure you don't need to sniff it to be like, there's a problem here.
These are those little details that always drive me nuts too. He like does that, and it's really interesting. And then his hands are clean immediately.
Yeah.
He picks up the bow and walks off. And I'm like, at least wipe it on the grass.
I thought the exact same thing. I was like, now I wasn't sure was it the same hand, but he picks up his bow and maybe grabs the Bronwyn's hand with the other. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that one was. Yeah, that'll be in the extended edition where he like wipes it on the back of the cow's arse. He's like,
yes. Put it back where it came from.
Poor cow.
That's great.
But yeah, Jaron, did you have any other tidbits on these scenes or anything else?
So I mean, so there's obviously a lot more in the second episode in the Southlands.
Yeah.
And so I'm speaking from, hindsight, where I know it's going to get more interesting. But even so, I really liked this, kind of like the Harfoots, where I went in like, I don't really care, and then it's like, oh, actually, I actually care about this. And one of the big things is that we always hear about Mordor, and we hear that there's this giant machine, and it's producing all this stuff. And here we are seeing an area of the map that will become Mordor, and it's that life near the lake, and in the it's all green still, and it's the people that were already enslaved by Sauron. And I'm already thinking like, man, are they going to get or they were not enslaved by Morgoth already? And it's like, are they going to get enslaved by Sauron, or are they going to get out of there? And so it kind of introduced some stakes to the story that I didn't ever have before, and so that in that sense I'm very interested. And then talking to when I talked to Ismail Cruz Cordova and Nazanin Bonyadi, they talked all the way back in June about the political dynamic, and it's really interesting to see. There's a lot there, so it ties in both their romantic element and then the way that the elves are there. They're not in charge. They're not. The way they've said it, they're not in charge, they're not the bad guys, but they're overseeing, and they're definitely the ones in the position of power. And apparently there's going to be more stuff about the political hierarchy within the elven structure. And so in that sense, it's very very interesting too. They set up something that I actually want to see. And you know that Mount Doom's going to blow its top any minute, whether that's literally the minute of episode 3 or like at the end of episode 8. It's right there, and it's a ticking time bomb. And so I'm very interested. I'm all in on seeing what happens here, even though I also like the fact that we don't have any context for this. Like that makes it a little more fun for the sprawling nature of this. They've made it so big that there's stuff I'm interested in that I want to see because I know, and then there's stuff that I'm like, they could go anywhere with this. Yeah. So.
I like that. I like the way they're keeping a lot of Tolkien fans guessing as well with the new scenes, even though those are the ones that we generally complain the most about, but but you're right. I like the Harfoot stuff and the Southlander scenes. Like, they're very interesting, and I like what they're setting up. And I suppose that gets us going on to our last scene, which would be I was going to talk about Charles Edwards as Celebrimbor where he looks at the camera, but he doesn't really say much anyways. And speaking of not saying much, the episode ends with everyone looking to the sky and watching as a comet comes crashing to Earth near the Harfoots, and we get our first glimpse of Meteor Man, or the Stranger, as they're calling him on the TV show. So, that's how the first episode ends. I don't know, is there much to say on the Stranger?
It's weird to have such a mysterious part of the show that I feel like we've talked to death before it started.
Yeah.
Like, what else is there to say?
No.
They don't give us anything, and it could be a million things. I mean, yeah.
Well, I think we're going to get into that in the second part of the episode anyways, as we break down episode 2. But before we do that, I just want to make sure, Jaron, how are we doing on time, do you think?
I think we could probably let Jaron go, and
that might be a natural breaking point here.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I think we should just thank Jaron profusely for coming on and actually helping us out. But we don't. This always happens. We're like, we'll go through quickly, but you just. It's naturally so you want to talk about it. It is fun. It's hard to not say the things that you want. You're like, I need to get this information out.
We did the same thing with the trailer breakdown. Myself and Johnny, we were like, okay, like, look, it's 2 minutes. How long could it possibly go on? And like, we were playing the trailer as we were talking about it, and we were like 18 seconds in after like 45 minutes. We're like, oh god, like we really need to speed this up.
The latest trailer I was on the way down to the New York City premiere on a train with Wi-Fi, and it drops, and I was like, I gotta write about this, and I wrote like 2,400 words on the train with books all over my lap. I wrote what I thought I could do, and then I submitted it, and I looked after it. It was 2,400 words long, because the speculation element, you can go forever with this stuff.
Yeah.
And, so honestly, it pulls, having a full episode kind of pulls, at least reins in the conversation some, but it's hard to get through. There's a lot of stuff introduced in that first episode. So
yeah, like that, and they had to do it, I suppose. Like they still didn't introduce the dwarves and Numenor or any of that stuff. So
oh my goodness.
Again, that was you could see so obviously why they wanted to release and drop these 2 episodes at the same time, because if we didn't get any dwarves in the first day of having the access to these shows,
there would have been
people would have lost the plot. Yeah. Yes. So it was a good thing to kind of save all of that for episode 2 as well.
Barking and all of his Reddit would have just gone nuts.
I was just about to say Barky. Shout out to Barky. He would have been like, "What the hell?"
Yes. I will give him a shout out because he is the one that helped me get the ticket to the New York City premiere. So thanks, man. I really appreciated that.
Barking, we
love you.
Possibly tag you somewhere if we have enough space in the 250 characters on Twitter. I'll do it. If I remember, I'll put it underneath in one of the comments. But Jaron, it's so great to finally have had you on our show.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been awesome to be here. Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course. And
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We will be seeing you shortly again, though, right? So.
Yes. I plan on doing more. I'd love to keep doing this. It's a good conversation. It's fun to cover this stuff on the press side of things. I don't get to talk to Tolkien people, so it's always fun to come on this side, the fandom side, and actually talk to people who can have a response that actually makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, right.
Today, I don't know if we weren't really making too much sense today. I don't think, but
I'll tell you the level. I'm talking on the level where when you say the word Valinor, eyes glaze over, whereas you guys are like, I have a response to that. Thank you.
Yeah. Valinor, I think I ate that once.
Exactly.
We of course we'll drop all of your links in the description as well, so everybody please go and check that out. Go follow Jaron and do
you want to say them one more time though, Jaron?
Sure. It's so the HALFLING is the podcast. You can find it on all the major sites, and if you go to pack.jaron, pak.jaron on Twitter, there's a link in the bio too. And then looper.com, if you just search Jaron Pak Looper, my name is very unique and unusual. So, but you can get my page on there, and it's all Lord of the Rings stuff lately. A lot of, like I said, I've interviewed the cast twice this summer, which has been a dream come true. And all of those have been going live. They're going to continue to go live for a while now. And so, and then there's a lot of other coverage I've been doing just for fun for them. I just finished an article on Lyndon, like a deep dive and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So.
Nice.
Awesome. That sounds incredible.
Well, it's been great having you on.
It's been fun.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you so
same.
much. Thank you so much. And as we said, we will speak to you again very, very soon. And hopefully we'll have you on this channel again sometime soon.
Definitely.
That'd be great.
Definitely, yeah.
All right. Talk soon, guys.
All right.
All right.
Cheers, man.
All the best. See you later.
Thanks. Bye.
So a huge thank you again to Jaron for coming on, and unfortunately you're going to have to be stuck here with just the two Mellon Heads for this second part of the episode, this second half, where now we will be getting into episode 2. So this is your second spoiler warning. We will be talking about all spoilers in episode 2. So first of all, Dave, what was your overall feeling? What did you make of just the episode as a whole?
Well, in regards to if it was better than the first, I actually haven't thought about that. Like, which is the better episode? I remember a lot of people saying to both of us, like, the first episode establishes a lot of things, but the second episode is action packed. And I didn't think that. I thought, like, for the first half of the second episode, I was like, we haven't really seen any action at all. But I loved both episodes. I think equally, because we got a lot of Lyndon scenes in episode 1, but in the second episode, getting to obviously meet the dwarves for the first time was incredible, and that's where we got our first shots of Eregion as well.
Doom. Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, no. When we saw so we obviously got Khazad-dûm, which was incredible, but then getting to see little bits of Celebrimbor at Eregion was really nice. But yeah, overall positive. There definitely wasn't a dip from episode 1 to 2, and hopefully they keep it up. So yeah, no dip. If anything, I think it may have even been better than episode 1. So. Now, you mentioned the dwarves a moment ago, and I think that was the big thing that was missing in episode 1 as well. And and again, as I said before, we knew as soon as episode 1 finished, we were like, oh, they didn't even touch the dwarves. That's going to be a big part of episode 2. So we were like, here come the dwarves. And first of all, speaking of the dwarves, what did you make of the interaction between Durin and Elrond? Yeah, well, like it was such a interesting. I think in the promotional footage that we got before the series came out, we could see the friendship of Durin and Elrond, and we were told about like how they're such great friends. But it was really weird and jarring when, you know, they had this sparring competition where they were trying to break the rock. And I kept thinking like Durin was gonna like wink and then like fail, but then I was like, but then he'll seem weak, and I was like, how's Elrond gonna? Yeah. It was really interesting. I was like, how's Elrond going to get out of this mess? And then we actually find out that there is a bit of trouble in paradise there, and that was such a good scene where they're riding up the elevator, and that one where Durin is saying like, you know, 20 years is a mere blink in the eye of an elf. Which kind of sounds like a callback to The Hobbit, strangely enough.
Thranduil.
Yeah, Thranduil. And he's like, but I got married. I've had kids. And it was really funny, but it was also kind of heavy on the heart. Like the feelings that Durin was expressing there, or the emotion that he was showing. I really enjoyed the interaction between the two. And what about you? I've told the listeners about my feelings at the start. What about how the episode progresses with the two of them? How did you feel that it went?
I think it was one of the things I liked the most about the episode. I think I really enjoyed everything about the dwarves. I love the direction that they're going with the dwarves and how they're portraying them as the people. They're so, I mean, it's a different world there under the mountain, and we're finally getting to see that in not this kind of comic throwaway aspect. It's more, these are a hugely intelligent ancient folk who have their rituals, have their just their different things that they do, the way that like they were speaking about resonating and singing to the rock. And it's like Elrond is just this, like, he's an elf, so he's obviously extremely old and ancient, and he's just like, I've never heard of this kind of stuff before. And so it's like these techniques that even the elves have no idea. So, and it's almost like they know the earth so well, and Deesa said as well that, like, you know, that's how you know where to go, and that's how you know where to stay away from, which is a really cool point as well. But really loved how I just loved the competition aspect of it as well, the kind of just breaking the rocks.
That was like cool. Their little what is it he says? I invoke the right. What is it?
He says I invoke, and then he says some like Elvish or Khuzdul word, I suppose. So I just didn't know what it was.
No, I feel like I recognize.
I can't remember.
Yeah. Anyways, he invoked something, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, everything was so mysterious and interesting with the dwarvish scenes. But oh man, I think everyone's gonna love the dwarves, like mainstream audience and Tolkienites as well. Like, Durin is hilarious, but in a respectful way. Like, you do respect him, but he's so funny, and like his relationship with Disa was just. Yeah, everyone was roaring laughing in the cinema because they're perfectly good for each other.
It's exactly what I was going to ask you next, because did you love the relationship, and did you love Disa as much as I loved her?
Yeah, she's hilarious and really funny, and she's the proper. She's exactly what I expected her to be, like keeping him in check, and I loved her like retelling of how they met and how they got married, and he was kind of like lying, and it was not 2 weeks, and she was like, it was 5 weeks, or was it the other way around? I can't remember, but I just loved typical like old married couple, and then they start making out, and you could just tell like they're so in love with each other. But I loved Disa, and they instantly became a fan favorite. Well, my couple of my favorite characters. I think they're great.
Yeah, I think they've just such good chemistry. Like, immediately as soon as they came on the screen, you're thinking, this is I don't know. It just, like you said, they seem like an old couple that have just been together for so many years. They just felt so comfortable together, and like they knew everything about each other, and the way they react, and the way Disa would say something and Durin would like throw his eyes up to heaven or something like that.
Oh, like, man, the best scene was just like, right, you're staying, but no hugs, not staying for dinner. And then like she's like, you're absolutely staying for dinner, and he's just like, I can't wait to rewatch it again. Like, absolutely brilliant.
I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah.
We're gonna move swiftly on. We're gonna change paces, and I'm gonna ask you, what are your thoughts on the stranger? Who is he?
Yeah, who is he? I think you and I have talked about this before. We've speculated on who he might be, and I don't know, was it on the podcast or off air, but like, I think we both want him to be a blue wizard. I know I want him to be a blue wizard, but and like that can be lore accurate, because there is a version of the canon where the blue wizards come into Middle Earth in the Second Age. Like, I know it's just a footnote in the Unfinished Tales, and I don't know, I think Tolkien might have been a little bit senile at the time when he wrote that, but that is a possibility, and it's a loophole, and I would love that to be the case. But there were so many Gandalfisms in this, like the whispering to the little fireflies, and just so after we had watched it, somebody said that they saw him carve a G somewhere. I didn't see that now, but
I didn't see that either, and I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember what else. Obviously, the whispering to the firefly was one of the big ones, but there was other things he did and mumbled, and there was a couple of Gandalf things he did. I suppose when he roared as well the first time, screaming, and all the trees came in. Like, the first thing I thought of was like, Bilbo Baggins. And so I don't know, do you agree with me? Do you want it to be a blue wizard, and do you think it is actually Gandalf?
I think that they're heavily hinting that it's Gandalf. Now, whether that's just kind of like throw us off the trail, maybe that's the case. Also, they're kind of half hinting that it's Gandalf, and then they're also half hinting that we don't know if he's good or evil, because he's all like having a nice eating some acorns with Nori, and then suddenly the music changes and he gives this like evil look, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen here? So again, who is he? We have no idea. Yeah. We're none the wiser. Yeah, we know exactly the same amount now as we did before this episode came out. So,
that's true. Yeah.
But as you said, they did hint a lot of Gandalfisms, I suppose. So, but we're going to try and move a little bit more quickly through this episode. So I'm going to just leave it at that and move on to the part where Galadriel battling with this worm that they call it, which is like this big sea monster thing. And The visual effects are just incredible. They're impeccable. We've got like that in the water, out of the water kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
So like I said, sorry, the camera's like her face looking, and then she looks under the water, and you can see those different things, and it's just seamless. So and that's when we meet Halbrand for the first time. So what do you think of him as a character and that scene in general?
Well, the scene is cool, and yeah, the visual effects were really cool, because I think that is something of high difficulty when you're doing shots, you know, in frame, and it's in the water and out of the water at the same time, and you're adding in a sea monster in the background. It's very impressive, and in fact, we saw a lot of those shots in the trailer, and I was hoping we'd get a better look at the sea monster, but he was quite scary, especially when you could just see him going underneath the boat. As far as Halbrand,
huge.
I don't know what to think of him, really. He seemed really nice in the trailers, and he seemed like such a dick here. So I don't know. And there's a lot of speculation of, I remember thinking this a long time myself, that it would be so cool if Sauron actually turned out to be one of the unknown characters, or one of the characters that is brand new. And I think a lot of people jumped onto Halbrand probably because in the trailer they made him out to be such a nice guy, and maybe just the fact that he's a man. You know, the other characters are like Arondir, the elf, he's hardly going to be Sauron. Theo, his child. Bronwyn, another woman. So I think Halbrand seems like he would be a good choice if they were to go down that route. And as well, his first line is, "Looks can be deceiving." And I was like, that sounds, come on.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't know. I don't know. Is there anything behind that other than just sheer speculation? I know that I thought of that first, but it seemed to be the thing at the event when we were there. Like, everyone was like, "Who is Sauron? Who is Sauron?" Shouting at every single celebrity.
Question.
But like, there is still a part of me that thinks like, they'll probably just like introduce Sauron as a character later, or it might be one of the new characters that we might see in Numenor in the later episodes as well. So I don't really know.
Sure. It might be someone that we haven't even seen. As you said, in any of the trailers, we might not have had any footage of this person up to this point. We're not giving away any spoilers at this. Just if anyone wants to know, we have no idea. We're just speculating, and so Dave thinks that Halbrand could be, but then we also have no idea.
Well, like, I think that's the big guessing game everyone's trying to play now, because you know it's pretty much confirmed that that's not Sauron from the trailers, the Eminem character.
Oh yeah, the blonde lady.
Yeah. So
she's another woman.
So that was one of the things I was really looking forward to the show, is that they're keeping us guessing and we still don't know, and I like that. But yeah, I suppose just judging Halbrand as a human man in this episode, bit of a dick. I hope he gets a bit nicer, and yeah. I would say he was not just like my least favorite, but I didn't really care for him that much as a character. Again, he didn't get that much screen time, I suppose, as well. So to be fair, but I was just like, okay, I'm ready to not be on this scene with Halbrand right now. I nearly forgot his name for a moment. So yeah, I think, but as we know, he's probably going to be a bigger part in episodes to come. So hopefully that turns the corner. Hopefully we get a bit more, I don't know, charm,
love for Halbrand. Yeah, hopefully we get more charm for him, and we like him a bit more. But we'll see what happens, and maybe he will be a villain. We don't know, but maybe it could be the Stranger as well.
Well, he did a pretty nasty act when he like left all his friends to die and saved Galadriel. Yeah. So he did a lot of things. Also, just he didn't come off very well.
Sure. But he did then save Galadriel's life by jumping into the water and swimming down. That was really cool as well. I liked that.
Maybe he just wanted her shiny dagger.
Maybe. I know the way they shot it. It was like he didn't realize
he didn't know it was there.
But so that was one really good thing for him as well. Also, if people aren't aware that the character who becomes Sauron, his name in the books is Anatar, and he is an elf. So it wouldn't be true to the lore unless this is somebody before. Maybe Halbrand will convert into Anatar, because Sauron also was a shapeshifter, so he could just kind of change at will almost, so we'll see. Anyway, let's move on and discuss the thing that I think definitely improved from episode 1 to episode 2, which is the Southlanders and Arondir and Bronwyn and their scenes. We get a lot of jump scares and we see an orc and so all of that. Tell me about all of
it. God, there's a lot to unpack there. I can't even remember when we were talking with Jaron, did we mention Bronwyn's sword or any of that crack? But look, there's nothing that we learned new there that we haven't already seen in the trailer. He has some shiny dagger and it turns into a longer dagger. And that's all cool. But
you mean Theo's?
Sorry, who did I say? Bronwyn.
You said Bronwyn.
Oh, Bronwyn, yeah. Bronwyn sounds like a man's name as well. So, yeah.
Like Baron.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, all the jump scares were amazing in this episode, and there was we didn't talk about it, but there was one part where I saw you visibly like jump back in your seat. Where
I got proper scared.
Was it like when Theo was digging at the floor and then a big eyeball appeared, or was it?
No, you could see that one coming. It was, oh god, I can't remember. And again, like.
I think it was when Bronwyn was looking out the door.
No, because again, I was ready for that. I was ready. I was like, here we go. There's going to be a jump scare. And maybe it was... I can't remember. But I definitely did jump out of my seat a little bit. I was like, oh,
your jump made me jump.
Yeah, which is what you want. That's what you want in those kind of scenes. So that was really well done. I enjoyed that a lot. And the orc, oh my god.
Oh my god. Like
he was not what I was expecting.
And was it just me, or did he have like an extremely hairy tongue as well? Like he came out, he spread out his fingers, he like cracked his neck, and then he opened his mouth, and I saw the tongue coming out as if he was like trying to taste the air, and it just seemed like it was a really, really hairy tongue, and it looked really disgusting. But my one gripe about, actually, I'm only just thinking about this now. I think the only gripe I have of the 2 episodes, or my main gripe, would be that the action scene here, it was brilliant and it was scary, but I couldn't really make out a lot of what was going on. It was a bit fast and a bit dark for me, and maybe that was just because we were seeing it on this humongous screen. But it
was dark. I didn't think it was dark at all.
Maybe just for me, just a tad.
It was, the screen was so massive. It was hard to kind of take everything in at the one time when we saw it in the IMAX. So
and my eyes are so tiny.
Yeah.
So
tiny little eyes. So I don't know. I thought it was all quite clear, and I'd say maybe when we see it on a more regular sized TV, we might. I don't know. I'm just looking forward to seeing everything again a few more times.
Oh yeah, definitely. But that was it. That was a terrifying scene, and the orc seemed so. It
was kind of like a zombie almost. Like, he's so powerful. It looked like his skin was just kind of like melted off or something, and also it was like really difficult to kill this guy. It's not just like, oh, it's just a little orc. We just swing a sword and kill him. They like stabbed him and like ran him through with blades a few times. He was just like still going.
And this is what I mean. Like during that fight scene, I didn't really know what was going on. I was like, okay, he was pushed into a stair, or he's pushed into a ladder, and now he's got like a knife in him. I saw she went to stab him, but like I didn't really see where she stabbed him, and like was he dead? And then he still had the knife in him, and then he was being hung, and I just didn't know what was going on. It was all so quick, and I was like, what's going on? But that was really cool, and I loved. Was it? Yeah, didn't Bronwyn? That whole sequence started with her choosing not to run. She just chose to kill the orc so that she would have proof to bring his head back to the little village. So that was pretty cool.
I don't know if she chose. Do you reckon that's what it was?
She chose something.
I thought she just wanted. I thought she just wanted to like be there to protect Theo, her son, just in case something happened. Like I don't know if it was more to prove like, oh look, these things exist, kind of like a I was going to say almost like going up to get in Game of Thrones when they go up beyond the wall to grab something to bring it down to show Cersei, look, these things exist. I didn't get that vibe. Maybe it was.
I definitely got that vibe. I definitely got the vibe of like they didn't believe her at all, the townspeople, and she made some sort of conscious decision. I don't remember what it was. I think it might have been when Theo was like run, and she darts to the door and she opens it up, and then she turns and she looks back down the hole. And then I was like, okay. And then you see that where she cuts off the head. I
thought she looked back at where Theo was hiding, and she was like, I can't leave my son here with this horrible creature.
Well, she was happy to do it a millisecond earlier.
Yeah.
By the way, the chemistry between those two is not right. I think Theo and Bronwyn, they just don't seem like they're related at all. He's like, "Hello, mother." She's like, "Oh, hello." What do you do in my house? Oh yeah, you live here.
Yeah. We'll see. Also, she's. I mean, she must have had him extremely young, I suppose, because
maybe she's enough.
I mean, yeah. But so that'd be a class plot twist.
Yeah.
She's been an elf all along. She's got her ears trimmed
to the ground.
But yeah, she's quite young, that actress. It seems she looks quite young to me. And he's like, I don't know what age he's supposed to be in the show, but he doesn't look younger than 16, I suppose. But anyway, definitely a big improvement on those Southlanders from episode 1 to episode 2. I thought that they were really good and so tense. There was so much tension in all those scenes. You were like on the edge of your seat, or you were like me, you were jumping off it. But overall, Dave, we're going to wrap up now in a moment or two. So just what are your overall takeaways, the good and the bad?
Well, I suppose we didn't even really touch on it, but the whole love thing as well between Arondir and Bronwyn, I just wanted to briefly mention that. Like, I think it's interesting, and I liked how they did mention that this has only happened twice before, and they're like, and both times has ended in tragedy. And I was like, okay, at least they're respecting that this shouldn't happen, and it's not like a usual thing. But yeah, okay, so overall good takeaways would probably be all the elven scenes that we talked about. I thought the dialogue was strong. The dwarves and Owain Arthur, we actually met him, and he is hilarious and a bundle of joy. So he was the only person that could play Durin, really.
He's so energetic.
And
he's like, it's infectious.
Yeah, he really is. Valinor, I just absolutely loved the way it's portrayed, and just the music in general. Holy hell, Bear McCreary really knocked it out of the park, and it was great to meet you, Bear, as well. It was lovely to meet you. I have, what else? I've intrigue for what's to come, and you mentioned earlier like the map integrations. That was pretty cool, and just the visuals are better than most movies, so you have to have that in there. What about you? Have you ever seen any other TV show that looked anything like this? No, like Game of Thrones is the closest, but it's still. I remember always saying during the latter seasons, like, this is incredible for a TV show, but you have to say for a TV show. And
sure,
like the dragons, as good as they made them, they were never movie standard. They could make them really good in some scenes, but in others they weren't as great. But this was pretty flawless. From now, again, myself and Johnny have just come back from the premiere, and also we haven't slept very much, so maybe it's not going to be very good on the second viewing on a smaller TV. But I don't know. I thought it was amazing on first glance.
Yeah, I think we have similar feelings about it. That I'm like, what's my overall opinion? I'm really pleased with it. There's still a lot of things that maybe I don't or didn't like, and I think that maybe, for example, some things that I didn't like that I know that they can't change going forward, and then there's other things that I'm not sure about, and we'll have to see about those going forward. But I think overall the good has outweighed the bad.
Oh, and definitely.
Just visually, it's and again, I think we also had this conversation with a few people that. I think we need to realize that there's a difference. We've got two different kind of ways that we can look at this show. One of them being a true Tolkien adaptation, and the other one would be just as a fantasy series. And obviously, if you could get both of those at the same time, that would be the best case scenario. But we don't live in a perfect world, and I think that. It's very difficult to get a true, like, I mean, the original Lord of the Rings movies can't be described as a true Tolkien adaptation either, because there's lots of big important changes. So I think we need to try and just enjoy what we can from this show. And for me, I'm going to try and just look at it a little bit from this kind of fantasy series and not get too hung up on some of the changes that I'm like, that's not actually right. But, like as I said earlier on, the reason of why they actually left Valinor in the first place, it's nothing to do with what they said in the show. But for the show, it worked for that show. And it worked for, okay, they needed to go and, hunt down Sauron or whatever it was. I can't even remember the reason that they gave. So like little things like that. I'm going to try and not get too nitpicky on those. I'm going to try and enjoy it for what it is, which is going to be a really epic fantasy series. And even some of the new characters that they have brought in and the new areas, I am excited and interested to see those things. The Harfoots were enjoyable, more enjoyable than we expected. The Southlanders, maybe I seemed a bit negative initially with the episode 1. I think episode 1, they were a bit kind of more boring, those scenes. But episode 2, it like ramped it all up again, and they were really action-packed and intense and full of tension. And there's so many good things to look forward to. Again, that's one other big factor. I've left the theater really excited for what is to come. And I really can't wait to like have seen all of season 1. I'm really looking forward to like having that and have it as a whole piece and be able to go back and watch it again. So that's a good thing to say about it as well.
Yeah. Definitely. I would agree with you on all those things. And I did say this to you and maybe one or two people after the screening. And it's not really a bad thing, but it's just the fact that the scope of the story or the many stories that they're trying to tell is so massive that it's impossible to keep everything as interesting as the other. So, for instance, I really, really enjoyed the Harfoot scenes, and we talked about like Arondir and more so Bronwyn and Theo scenes that are like very terrifying. I feel that they have like incredible sets and all that kind of stuff, but those scenes are kind of a bit more bland, but the incredible sets and the beauty of like the dwarven scenes and Linden and all that kind of stuff made me feel a little bit more bored whenever we're going to Tir Harad or the Southlands or whatever the name of the place is. I just wanted to be like, right, let me get back to Eregion or let me get back to Khazad-dûm. But that's not a complaint to the show, because the show, like, it has to show all the different aspects. But when you see the beauty of Valinor and the beauty of Linden, and then you're like, right, now we're in some crappy muddy barn over here. Like,
yeah.
There's nothing you could do about that. But and I suppose we've already mentioned like our other little gripes, but my main one is I'm just terrified of the stranger being Gandalf, and I don't know what else to say about that. I just really hope it's not Gandalf. I'd much rather him be Sauron, or I don't really want him to be Sauron, but I'd much rather that be the case.
We want him to be a blue wizard. That's what we both want, I think.
Yeah.
Right, and that may be the case.
My brother gave his life hunting the enemy. His task is now mine.
That's it, guys. I think we'll leave it there for this episode on this very special day, and we have been eagerly anticipating this show for so long, and that day is finally here, and we can actually return to Middle Earth. So, I'm just so happy,
I'm so excited.
I'm excited for what's to come. So thank you all so much for listening and for watching. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, and if you're not, please head over to our YouTube channel, the Mellon Heads, and give us a follow, like, share, and all that good stuff. And also check out our Patreon page, our Patreon channel. All those links will be in the episode description. But most importantly, what was this experience of returning to Middle Earth like for you? Please let us know what you felt. Did it live up to your expectations? Are you still holding judgment until you get a little bit more, get a few more episodes in, or have you made your mind up? That's what we want to know. And also a huge thank you to Jaron for being a fabulous guest.
Brilliant guest.
And remember, you can find all of his links as well in that same episode description. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for coming along, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.